All right, YouTube, continue recording. Repo Man 64, change the background. All right, so I'm gonna go live today on God's Land Down Under with Brett. I don't know if he has any other guests on. I wanted to make this one last video. If we are correct, uh, we could see a rapture at sunset in Israel today, which is very exciting. It's something that fits perfectly on the timeline and something we've been looking forward to for a very long time. So we will ring in the rapture on God's Land Down Under today. I think I go on at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's just for me, that's an hour and 45 minutes from now. By the time I'm done recording this and uploading it, it'll be time to get on with Brett. So, real quickly, I wanted to streamline the last video. I've got a couple of YouTubes that you should subscribe to that have been working on this as well. David the Watchman actually worked on this a couple of weeks ago, and then as I was going through the timeline in my head at work doing math, I was like, wait a minute, this matches, this matches. So I noticed that the Holy Spirit is showing a lot of us this. There is another YouTube I'll show you towards the end here. He just did an amazing video on it. We still don't know where to put those 30 days. You have the 1,260 twice. You have 1,290 and you have 1,335. I can fit the 1,260 twice. I can fit the 1,335. I can't quite fit those 30 days. I'm not sure if they happen in the middle of the 1,260, which would mean that we go 1,260, 30 days, and then 1,260, and then 45 days for the. In other words, the first 1,260 is a part of the 1,290. The second 1,260 is a part of the 1335 in essence. So I'll show you all the math real quick. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. I want to go through it real quick and show you what I'm looking at. Now, again, this is for the tribulation saint more than anyone. If we are in fact raptured today, which would be nice. Let me minimize this. Hold on. Let me bring this up. If we are raptured today, then whoops, do that. If we're raptured today, then this information will be very important for the tribulation saint. Now, this is the timeline that I built 6 years ago. And what I did was, and I've always had the same problem with that extra day on the Gregorian calendar as opposed to 364 days on the Enochian calendar, the Essene calendar. But if you don't start your year on March 17th, then none of this will match with what we're seeing today. So where we're at right now is we're coming up on what we think to be at sunset in Israel today, here in just a few hours, Heshvan 16, October 30th. Now here, it confused me until I built the other timeline as to why the fourth Pentecost did not land on Halloween. And I think it's because we go one day before. I think as soon as we go, the next day judgment begins. So remember, Halloween, October 31st, November 1st, is the day that is the day. And I wonder if I could hide my day right there, actually call it October 31st, November 1st, and hide it there instead of everywhere else I've been hiding it. But anyway, that's just a thought that came to my mind. In history, this is the day that Adam sinned. And I'll show you that screenshot I have of that as well. Other people's research, very good research into old old books, books that even the Bible mentions about the book of Jasher. The reason it comments on that is not that Jasher should be in the Bible. It shouldn't. It comments on that in kind of giving us a leeway to go ahead and look at historical books to try to figure this out, honestly. So, yeah, I wrestled with that. Why did the fourth Pentecost land on October the 30th? Well, now that we're here, I think it's because um, we're raptured out and then judgment comes the following day. There are very few cultures around the world that don't have something going on this day, on October 31st, November 1st. When the flood happened in 1656 from creation, 2344 BC, or 4344 from right now, or actually from 7 years from now. When the flood occurred, they got off the ark. They knew the date. They knew when it happened. Okay. They wrote it down in their books. They proceeded forward to build a tower called Babel. And when God confused their languages, he confused, there are seven root languages. There's thousands of languages right now, but there are seven root languages. And in those seven root languages, um, there is history. They knew about this because this occurred prior to the Tower of Babel. So they wrote this down. They knew it. They knew when it happened. We go forward, and then we have all the calendar. God, Satan just did a number on all the calendars. God allowed it to happen so that it would just confuse even the demons as to when things actually are. Tell a lie long enough, you begin to believe the lie, right? All right. So let me get through this. I showed you this last time, waves and seas roaring. We linked it to the possibility that we're not going to see a huge flood, which it could be both. It could be a huge wave or tsunami coming, as well as this passage here pointing to Isaiah 17, pointing to mankind as being a wave of rushing waters. A nation shall rush like rushing waters. And that's what's going on right now because of Israel, or because what's happening in Israel. That little dinky country is just winning. I bet you they wish that they hadn't gone in and taken those kids out of that concert at this point, because they are just losing everything. I bet you they wish they had just waited a little bit longer to get their act together, to go off against Israel a little bit stronger than what they had initially started, because now Israel is dominating them and they're taking over, which is exactly what God said would happen. Every nation is going up against them. You can do this, other people's studies, which is good because, again, we all bring a piece of the puzzle to this puzzle. We all bring our little piece to it. And I'm talking about everybody. And sometimes in the comments, they're like, all I see are license plates. I'm like, that's your piece. That's fantastic. Don't stop talking about that, because it brings, if you take it to a regular person, a Gentile, if you bring that information to them, they have the opportunity to say, well, that's just a coincidence. But if you were writing with them, say, look, right there, 11:11. Look over there, 11:11. Look there. And they're pretty soon they're going to be like, wait a second. How does how does this keep happening? And it won't be long before possibly, and you share your testimony with them, that they start to say, hey, maybe there's something going on here I want to get in on because this person's seen all that. So my point is that it doesn't matter what piece of the puzzle you have, share it and talk about it to others. I can't even tell you how many YouTube channels I'm subscribed to and listen to, that watch Woman of the Dragon. She's every day taking pictures of the sun, and she sees things I don't see, but she does, and that's a beautiful thing. So keep going on. all the way up into the very end. Don't stop until the very end and let people know if you see me go. So if you want to know about this study, go to Robert J. Morgan, and he did a study on Acts. There are 4 Pentecost events. Does that mean that salvation can only happen on a Pentecost? No, but it initiated on these 4 different events. And the 4th one happens when I do the count on the timeline. It does happen on October 30th. Remember, that confused me. I even left it out initially because I was like, well, it doesn't land on the exact day. So maybe the 4th Pentecost event isn't that important. But as we come forward, I recognize, hey, of course God's going to rapture us out of here prior to judgment. And of course, there's going to be a definitive difference between the rapture and judgment. There will be no question what just transpired. So October 30th, Judgment Day in most cultures around the world, the day the flood occurred is October the 31st. I know that there are those that will try to hang on to their calendar and move it around to November. November the 11th is their next favorite date, but that's the date Noah got off the ark. It's not the date the flood started. So this is the one concrete day, which is why I believe that God said, as in the days of Noah, he's pointing, you can do all your math from the date of the flood. If you use the date of the flood and count back, you can complete your year. Count forward, you can complete your year. And it's perfect. It absolutely lands everything perfectly, just as in the days of Noah. And like I said before, not to be critical of other channels, of course not. They all bring their piece of the puzzle, and I firmly believe that. Steve Fletcher looking at all the events and doing time counts, it's absolutely astounding what he finds. But there are those channels that will, and it's okay. Like I said, I want to make sure you understand it's okay. I'm not disrespecting or dogging them out in any kind of way, but they will look at the flood as being on October the 31st, just in the days of Noah. They'll leave their timelines that they built and come to this timeline, but then as soon as the flood passes, they jump right back to their timeline. You can't do that. Time is time. The sun comes up, it's a day, and the sun goes up the next day, it's a day. All right. So I showed you this last time. This is 1 Kings 8:65. We see in Leviticus where this feast is supposed to last 7 days. And on the 8th day, they're sent away to their tabernacle. This is tabernacles. And the 8th great day is Shemini Atzeret. But King Solomon does something different here. He adds another 7 days, but he makes certain it's 7, 7, and 14. 8th day. 7 and 8 is 15. It's not 14. That can only mean that the 8th day is sharing with the first day. So it would look like this. You go 7 days. You have tabernacles. I'm Shemini Atzeret on the 8th day, but it also is the first day. And then you count 7 again, and you wind up with 14 days. That's how it works. What happens when you do this? First of all, it's not 15 days, it's 14. But when you do this on the timeline, it starts with what's his name? The guy that put a dress on to try to hide from the Jews from getting killed. He's a real winner, wasn't he? He died on the 17th. He started this flood. The flood lasted a year and 10 days. He started in October the 7th. By the October the 17th, this Yahya Sinwar was dead. Yahya Sinwar was dead 1 year and 10 days. 7 days later is the day that Noah enters the ark. But God shuts the door on Halloween, on October the 31st. That's when judgment begins. So I'll show you that here in a moment. But just keep in mind, that's how the 14 days work, because the 8th day was actually beginning to count the first day of the next 7 days, which this is Halloween right here. And this is Noah entering the ark. And then this prior to that is when Sinwar was killed on the 17th. All right. Now, I got to put on my glasses. Acts 2, 1. October the 30th. And when the day of Pentecost was fully come, we see this and we think that it must be speaking of the first Pentecost. But what if it's speaking of the group of four Pentecosts? That this is now, when I do the math, 50 days after this Pentecost, it doesn't land on anything. Another 50 days, it doesn't land on anything. This was the fourth Pentecost I left off because it didn't land on Halloween. It didn't make sense to me that it landed on October the 30th. I'll show you that in a second here. But was fully come. Could it be that the four Pentecost events spoken of in Acts and then the final one, I circled this, but the final one is actually in Acts 19. So could it have been referring to the fourth Pentecost, when they all four events fully came, and then boom, with all of that going on, now the church is fully established. People are running around telling other people. I want to remind you, I know this is a little bit of a sticky issue with some people. Speaking in tongues just means other languages. It doesn't mean some gibberish that nobody can understand. It actually is another language. Again, I'm fluent in Spanish. You wouldn't be able to tell that by looking at me, but it's fun when I'm at work and there's people there that they speak English and Spanish, but I get an opportunity because I've been living in Jacksonville for 25 years. I lived in Miami for 15 where I learned it. And for the last 25 years, I've retained it. I speak a second language, but I speak in tongues. That's what that is called. I don't know that. I know people that are into that. I don't understand it. If there's nobody there to understand what you're saying, I don't understand the point of it. So, my 2 cents on that. Daniel 12, 30 days. All these things shall be finished. Many shall be purified and made white and tried. Who gets purified, made white, and tried? We see this in Revelation where they had to wash their robes to make them white in the blood of the Lamb. We don't. We get this brilliant white robe. Jesus did it all. We didn't do anything. We have evidence of these because he did it. I can't imagine, just silly things. Like, I've never been a big drinker, but I drink on the weekends. But so I don't want you to think that I had a problem with alcohol. I never have. But I decided 7 years ago that I was not going to take a drink, because if Jesus can do it, I can do it. And I pray that this testimony, this thing I'm saying, would give strength to others who actually do have a problem with it, to say, hey, I love God. I've accepted Jesus in my heart. I'm not drinking anymore until we drink anew with Jesus in heaven. You can do that. That would be a greater testimony from you than it would be from me, who's not really, who not never really cared about alcohol that much. But can you imagine you say, I'm not touching anything else until I see Jesus in heaven? You might actually only have to wait it here in a few hours. But still, that's my point. Many shall be made purified and tried white. So these are tribulation saints or Jews. And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, when does that happen? That happens mid-tribulation. And the abomination that maketh desolate set up. Now, I just heard, I think it's Tabernacle of Christ, say, what if that daily sacrifice taken away is us, and then to the abomination of desolation set up 1,290 days. Pay attention to that 1,290 right there. I'm going to show you why it says that. And I'm going to show you also why it says, blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,335 days. So I liked what he said. He said that the daily sacrifice would be us raptured. I hadn't heard that before. I always thought that the Jews would be sacrificing all the way up until the middle of the tribulation, and then the Antichrist will go in there and proclaim himself to be God. The two witnesses will have died and laid in the street for 3.5 days, and after a period of time, 3.5 days, they will be raised. They will be risen from the dead. So There shall be 1,290. Blessed is he that waiteth come to the 1,305 and 30 days, 1335. But go thy way until the end, for thou shalt rest and stand in thy lot at the end of days. So Israel must leave, the Jews must leave Israel by the time they turn 80. They must leave by May 13th of 2028. They will be 80 years old. When you do the math back from there, we start doing math from here. I'm going to try to go through this a lot quicker. So if tribulation, in fact, does begin on October the 31st, and the rapture is here in a few hours on October the 30th, or at some point on October the 30th, I don't want to limit it to here in the next few hours. It might be sunrise. David did a really good study. David the Watchman did a really good study showing that it is sunset, and that's a really high time to watch. But we've had a lot of high watch times. But what's ironic about it is all the math we've ever done, nothing has ever fit as tightly as this math right here with the 1,260, 1,290, and the 1335. So from October the 31st, when I believe tribulation begins, October the 31st, when God brought the flood, October the 31st, when Adam sinned and God brought judgment on Adam and handed all those things down to him, you know, it's like a rich kid. You can't have your car this week, or I'm going to flood the entire planet. You know what I'm saying? It was rough on Adam because Adam knew what it was like to be in paradise. The rest of us don't have this emotion, so it would be harder on us because we didn't know what that felt like. So now I want to put my 30 days in the center of the 1,260, and I want to show you why. Tribulation begins on October the 31st. When you add 1,290 days, you get to May 13th, 2028. Israel is now 80. Something happens in the middle of all of this, and I say that something happens on April the 13th in 2028, 30 days prior to Israel becoming a nation. When you read, and I don't know if I took a picture of this, but when you read it, it says things are going on. The two witnesses die. They finish the temple. He walks in. I don't know how much time is involved in that. Does he just show up one day and walk in, or does he say, all right, on this day, I'm going to walk in and things get prepared for this guy? I don't know. So I placed my 30 days right in the center. 1,260 days would bring us to April 13th. 1,290 days would bring us to May 13th. Now, from May 13th, 2028, when Israel is now 80 years old, they must flee to Petra. They can't come down and grab anything, nothing. Everything is prepared and waiting for them to be taken care of at Petra. God has already got it set up. Somehow it's all prepared for them. We're calling it Petra because that seems to be what it appears to be. So we're just saying they're going to Petra at this point. We don't actually know 100% where they're going, but we think it's Petra. If you add 1,260 days to, and I showed you have 1,260 and then the 30, which brings you 1,290, brings you to Israel being 80 on May 13th. Now, from May 13th, 2028, we're going to share the date to start and the date on this date and start the day on it, just like it showed us in Solomon when he ended the 8th day, but he also started the first day. That we have biblical evidence of that. So we're going to end it on May 13th, and we're going to start on May 13th, 1,260 days. And it's going to land here on October the 25th, the day Noah enters the ark. Now, the reason why Tabernacle of the Bride might be correct, because 30 days earlier is September the 25th, which is atonement. 1,260 would bring us to atonement, but there's 30 days in there for some reason, and some, again, are putting it at the end. So what if I did 1,260, which would land us on April 13th, which makes no sense. That's why you have to do the 1,290 there. But if I did, and I put it over here, then we would see September 25th, which is atonement, which makes sense also. Now, like I said here, there's a 30-day gap. There's a 30-day gap from April 13th. Remember that April 13th is the 1,260 days, plus the 30 would be May 13th when Israel has to flee. When you go from April 13th, 30 days earlier, 1,335 days, you land on Hanukkah. Hanukkah is always at nightfall on December the 8th, becoming December the 9th. Always. It never changes. So that's the 30-day gap. There's a 30-day gap, whether you place it in the beginning, which I don't think so, because the rapture has to happen. What happens after we're raptured will be November the 30th. October the 1st, December. Yeah, there's nothing there. There's nothing on the timeline. So that wouldn't make sense. So you put the 30 days in the center. Now you have April 13th at landing on, like I showed you. It lands on April the 13th. I did that wrong. Hold on. Oh, yeah, I wrote it in. April the 13th, if you go 1,260 days, this April the 13th, when you count from April the 13th, you'll land on Hanukkah. So the 30 days is in here somewhere. And some are putting the 30 days before 30 days as a part of the 45 days to make the 1335 and calling it 75 days. But then I suppose you could, because then we're starting on atonement. You could put all 75 days. Well, you really can't, because if you do, you still land over here. Whoops, on April the 13th. You still land right here on April the 13th with 1,260 days, and it's 1,000. So you can't. The 30 days belong here. This is where they belong. 1,260 days brings us to April 13th. 1,290 days brings us to the day they have to flee to Petra, the day they turn 80 years old. And the reason we have to do it this way is because from April 13th, 2028, and you add the 1335, you land on Hanukkah. 1,260 days from when they flee Petra. Let me enlarge this. I keep forgetting to do that. They flee Petra, 1,260 days. We wind up here on the day Noah entered the ark. 30 days after, you see there's some overlap there. There's a 30-day overlap there. And to me, it's placed where I put it, because when you place it where I put it on April the 13th, the 1,260 days lands us on Hanukkah. If you don't do it from April 13th, which is what the 1,260 days does land on, then you land on 30 days after this, which would be January the 8th, which really doesn't have any meaning on the timeline or anywhere for that matter. So Petra, there's a 30-day gap. Let's, if we have time, do math to that. There's something about a 30-day gap. Somebody put a comment on my YouTube that says, what if the 30-day gap is a silence in heaven for the space of about a half an hour? What if that half hour equals 30 days? And I'm like, that's pretty interesting. I like that comment, you know? So apologize. I don't have a lot of time. As a matter of fact, it's the second I'm done with this live with Brett. I got to rush out of here and go to work. And I'll be working until 9:30 tonight. So it'll be quite the day, but it's okay, because if we're raptured, then it won't matter. Hold on a second. I My computer is dying. Let me see what I have here. Sorry about this. Give me a second. Let's see here. What have I done? I've unplugged something. It should not be unplugged. Let's see if this does anything. Nope, that didn't help me at all. Hold on a second. Sorry about this. What is I like to know what this people goes over there. Well, that's kind of messed up. All right. Well, I'm gonna have to rush through this and then figure out the power in a minute. I didn't realize that something's unplugged somewhere. I don't know what. All right. So from now when you do a total of 2550, that's 1,290 and 1,260. Again, we land from the rapture happening on October the 30th to the day Noah enters the ark. And again, if you do 2520, those 30 days are still embedded in there as being September the 25th, which is the Day of Atonement. It always is the Day of Atonement. So I find that to be very interesting. Very interesting that those 30 days appear no matter where you go. You can't get rid of those 30 days. All right. And I think I tried to do, yeah, I did it this way as well. October from the flood or from tribulation beginning, 1,260 days will always land us on April the 13th. 30 days later will be when Israel becomes a nation. I'm sorry, Israel will become 80 years old after being a nation. May 13th, 2028. If you subtract just 3.5 years times and half a time, now we land on November the 11th. This is the day Noah leaves the ark. So that date comes up as well. Let me see here. Okay. All right. Now, where are we at? This is the second timeline I built. I decided to build it 6 days you shall work, and 7 day on seventh day you shall rest. So I built this timeline. I've always tried to apply the Hebrew timeline to the Gregorian, and I failed. Not failed. It worked pretty good. You saw the other timeline, but when I realized 6 days you shall work, and on the seventh day you rest, and I put it all on like this, it moved a couple of events by a day until I figured out that it's because, and it was accurate for the most part, but this one is completely accurate. Each day of the year, Nissan 1 is the first day of the year. You continue on down, and all of these days are lined up to the Hebrew date. They are not lined up to the Gregorian date. The Gregorian date is simply on there to give us a milestone as to where we are. So we come down here, and when I put it all onto the timeline, I know when creation began. I know when Jesus was born. I know when trumpets is. I know when Jesus was named and circumcised. And of course, when you count down, it's amazing how uh, when you start the year there, that of course Heshvan 10 lands on October the 24th at nightfall, becoming the 25th when Noah entered the ark. And the flood begins on Heshvan 17, October 31st at nightfall, becoming November the 1st. So what happens here? This is what we're looking at nightfall on the 29th, Heshvan 16, becoming the fourth Pentecost as being a high rapture watch date, which is what we'll talk about today on God's Land Down Under, and take a look at this. And again, I didn't put the fourth Pentecost on here on the other timeline until later on because it just didn't line up. All the Pentecosts line up perfectly. This Pentecost here, the third Pentecost, landed perfectly on the first day of creation. How could that not be accurate? This Pentecost here, the second Pentecost, landed perfectly on the 9th of Av. It was perfect. And then this Pentecost here, this is the day Moses walks up into the clouds in how do you say, Mount, is it, what mountain did he walk up into? I forget, but he walks up. And we know the count is accurate because from the Bible clearly says, from the wave sheaf offering, you shall count from the Sabbath after. This is the Sabbath after. It's right here. You shall begin your count. One, and then you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 49 days right there. Actually, you're supposed to count from back here. You land here, and it says, even unto the next day. Pentecost must always land on a Sunday. It does perfectly. Every 50 days, it lands on a Sunday. So this is the first Pentecost right here. And when the Pentecost had fully come, the fourth Pentecost right here, October the 30th. So that's what we're looking at. Very high rapture watch day moments coming up here in just another hour and 15 minutes. Let me see if I have anything else. Somebody asked me, where do I get my information that Adam sinned? And this is found in the book of Jubilees. And here we have that the serpent convinced Eve to eat the fruit on the 17th day of the second month, which is Halloween. And this is also the day that God flooded the planet. In the 8th year after Adam's creation, so Adam was 7 years old. He was born, I believe, at the age of 26, and he was in there for 7 years. I think he mirrored what Jesus, which is why I think the Antichrist that you guys are looking for will be approximately 30 years old. He won't be an old person. You'll have a lot of false apostle or false, not apostles, but false Christ coming. But the Antichrist himself, I believe, will be 30. We won't know who it is on this side of the rapture. We won't have a clue who it is. We can surmise all day long and guess who it is, but ultimately, this person will come to power, and maybe that's where the 30 days is. Maybe the 30 days is in the beginning. I don't know. I don't know where the 30 days is, but it could be in the beginning. It could be in the middle. It could be a part of the 75. I don't know where it is, but at any rate, um, Adam's creation. So Adam, let's say he's 26 and a half years old. He sins right here. So Adam, it would be the age Jesus came to fix what Adam broke. So they were the same age. It also states that they were removed from the garden on the, it says new moon because of these faulty translations. New month, the first day of the fourth month. The first day of the fourth month, which I've showed that to you before. It's right here. Whoops. This is where Adam was removed from the garden. Tevet 1, the first day of the fourth month, 47 days. That's 274. This is 230. That's 230 and what? So, yeah, so it should be 47 days. 45 days, 45 days. I'm sorry. If you share a day, you've got a period of 47 days from the head of the year when Adam sinned, and you got a period of 45 days after Adam sinned or after judgment came upon Adam on October the 31st, 45 days. So it's almost like there's 2 days, if they share a day, 2 days of 46. Don't know what that means. 46, but it comes up to 46 from the head of the year here on Tishri 1 to when he sinned and God brought judgment right here, and to when he was removed from the garden on the first day of the fourth month, which is December 16th, which of course is after Hanukkah. God seems to leave him in the garden and realizes that after Hanukkah that he has to remove Adam unless he eats of the tree of life and lives forever. So he removes him from the garden 45 days after he sinned. He was walking around the garden for 45 days after he sinned, yes, and after judgment was brought on him. In other words, God took time. You can find this in the book of Jubilees 333. All right. Now, I think I went back through it trying to figure this out. 1,260 plus 1,260 from the date of, I say rapture, but it's actually tribulation begins, and that's 2520, and it comes to the Day of Atonement, missing those 30 days, missing those 30 days. So not putting those 30 days in at the beginning or in the middle, this is what happens. And we do know that Day of Atonement is when something to do with them actually recognizing that Jesus is their Lord. But we left out those, I think those 30 days That's why the Bible's written the way it is: 1,260, 1,260, 1,290, 1335. I think it's written that way on purpose to see that there's an overlap, or that the 30 days belongs in the beginning. I think it belongs in the center right here, but we shall see. Who's this? A Billboard for Christ. That's the one who just made an amazing video. He did the math on the 1,260. What I'm seeing here is with David the Watchman and a Billboard for Christ. I did my video last time. I was like, oh, this is exactly what David was saying in a previous video to what I just made. So it's like the Holy Spirit is coming out and showing us all this stuff as we try to fit. And what's amazing is how it fits. Is it not amazing? Did you know that only in 2024 and in 2031 will these dates work out? They will not work out in 2025 and 2032. They just won't. David the Watchman. Yeah, he did the math also on the 1,260 days. I think he did it here, or maybe he did it quite a while ago. He did a really good job on what he was looking at on the 1,000. We're all trying to figure it out, right? Now, let me show you something. This will not work in 2025 and 2032. In my opinion, the rapture needs to happen here in about an hour, or at some point in this 24-hour period of December the 30th. I think tribulation must begin on October the 31st. So Hanukkah for 2024 will begin on the evening of Wednesday, the December the 25th. Got a match. Jesus was born. Jesus was conceived. He left his rightful place in heaven to come here into the womb of Mary. That's when he left heaven. He didn't leave heaven when he was born. A baby is a baby from the moment of conception. Jesus proves that with the math. Just the math alone proves it, because from December the 25th, when he was conceived, to Tabernacles, which is it is September the 30th. It's exactly 40 weeks to the very day. So Hanukkah, look how it matches. December the 9th, December the 25th. I have also thought that perhaps in the year that Jesus was born, not only was it conceived, sorry. When he was conceived, not only was it Christmas for us, but Hanukkah matched to the same day. We have a match in 2031. We will not have this match again. And we have a match in 2031 on the evening of Tuesday, December the 9th, 2031. Hanukkah will begin. This matches the timeline. The timeline clearly says that Hanukkah is on December the 8th at nightfall. Over here, it jumps around. December the 8th at nightfall becoming December the 9th is Christmas. It matches here, and here it actually matches the timeline. The date that they have is actually the date that it actually is on December the 9th. Here, the date that they have is wrong, but it is December the 9th, but it matches Christmas. I found that to be incredible that does not happen again. All right. I don't know what happened. I said stop share, and I think I need to close this. Let's see. Oh, there we go. All right, I'm running out of battery juice. I got to figure out why I don't have any power. I don't know what happened. Something's unplugged somewhere. Repo Man 64, like, comment, share, and subscribe. This might be your last opportunity right here. Some point, I think something huge is going to happen after sunset in Israel. I really think it's the rapture. I really do. But if it's not, we're going to keep trying to figure it out. Help out. Help us out. See if you see something in there and put in the comments, see if we can figure out when this is going to occur. Like I said before, Halloween is the day that the flood came. Halloween is the day that Adam sinned. So Halloween, I believe, is going to be the day that tribulation begins, and we can't be here for it. We have to be gone. So, all right. We'll chat with you all again later. Go to a quiet place by yourself. Nobody needs to know, and you don't need to tell anyone except the Lord in your heart. That guy at work, the tribulation saint that I call him, which I'm not 100. I'm not. I'm joking. I joke with him about it, but I really don't know. Only God knows that. But he came up to me yesterday with his hand out, and I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "I just want to apologize. You are correct." I said, "Well, I'm correct about everything, but go ahead. About what?" And he said, "Going to a quiet place by yourself is correct." He said he went to his church and asked them, and they looked at the Matthew 6, 5, and 6, and they told him that I'm correct. That statement is true. That when you do accept the Lord, it's not a public event. It's not a showing off event. It's not an event that you can, now I can join the church because I accepted the Lord. It's a private moment between you and your Creator, something that you do intimately with your Creator. And I explained it to him. I said it's just like the consummation night. You don't invite people into the room. You're consummating with your new bride. They will see you before. They will see you after. There will be a change from before, change to after. Afterwards, you two are going to run off hand in hand, married, doing everything together. Prior to that, you did nothing together. You were two independent people. Once you were married, the two became one. Once you accept this, you are married to Jesus. And now you go hand in hand throughout your day. And now everybody can see. Now go tell everybody. As soon as you've consummated the marriage, as soon as you've accepted Christ, go tell everybody. So, all right, Repo Man 64. We will see you all on God's Land Down Under here in an hour, which gives me time to figure out the power problem because I'm dying quick. All right, chat with you all again later.